in Singapore, where I led a life of safety. I could leave a club at 5 a.m., mindlessly get into a cab, doze off sometimes, knowing I'm going to get home. So when I moved to India 5 years ago to start an NGO, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to live in this city, where I would get into a cab, give a fake call to my parents, say, yeah, I'm in a cab, just so the cabbie knows, someone knows, I'm in a cab. But something happened 3 years ago that changed my mind and made me stay. One of my students abruptly stopped coming to our center. The other students informed me that there were some men that were sexually harassing her on her walkover. And as a solution, what did her parents do? They stopped her schooling. Welcome to India. I couldn't accept this. So the Super School team, that's the NGO, got together and they started devising plans like community walks. And that's when I noticed my senior students, who are otherwise really chatty, were at the back rolling their eyes, awfully quiet. I asked, what's up? And they told me, quote unquote, दीदी, अगर वो पीछे मुड़ के देखेगी, हंसेगी, तो लड़के छेड़ेंगे नहीं तो क्या करेंगे? Didi, if she turns around, smiles and laughs at those men, then obviously they're going to harass her. This doesn't happen often, but I was at a loss for words. I couldn't believe that my star students were saying this, but I could understand why. So we created a module, a workshop on victim blaming and consent, which then eventually turned into a series of workshops, comprehensive sexuality education, that we expanded onto other schools and institutions. In the process of trying to fix the gender biases of my students, I realized something, that I too was living with so many of my own biases that when I look back now, I am mortified, I'm embarrassed. I call them my blind spots. Take for instance, and I want everybody to reflect, because I'm sharing my embarrassing past. I hate it when my body is objectified by words or actions, or that women are referred to as mal or item. But I was singing along passionately to "Main to tandoori murgi hu yaar, gatkale bhaiya alcohol se." I support the LGBTQIA communities. I've reshared the pride flag on all my social media feeds. But I used to use the words "chuck" and "that's so gay" as an insult. I have fought for gender equality as long as I can remember. I hate being subjected to outdated gender norms. Yet, up until a few years ago, I used to have certain expectations out of somebody based purely on their gender. For instance, men should offer to pay for the date, or that as a female, I expected out of myself that I should be free of hair everywhere, all the time. And that made for some really painful laser sessions. I want everybody in the audience to ask yourself, do you have certain values, but you behave in a way that's contradictory? To make myself feel a little better, I told myself that my hypocrisy is minor, that I won't actually discriminate somebody based on their gender or sexuality, let alone commit a gender-related crime. So I'm not part of the problem, and you're probably thinking the same thing, that I'm not part of the problem, I'm just a very normal, nice person. But you see, all of us put together, all of our biases put together, create a culture of gender inequality in India. A culture that is rampant with gender-related crime and discriminatory gender practices. What did make me feel a little better, though, was that I was not alone in this, which, if you think about it, is not a good thing. I wish I was alone in this. Super School India selects working professionals to volunteer 1 day a month for a year to deliver our sex education workshops in partner schools. In the process of training them and curating material with them, I realized that they too share some of these biases with me. Together, we found 5 blind spots in our own behavior, which in retrospect we feel we should have been taught about in school, because they were as basic as knowing that we don't get into cars with strangers, unless it's Uber. So, what would explain educated urban elite being so misinformed and so uninformed? And I think the answer lies in our culture. A culture where we are passive consumers of information, a culture of patriarchy, a culture of hierarchy, an outdated education system, and so on and so forth. And one of the biggest contributors of culture is entertainment. Entertainment is everywhere. Everybody is consuming entertainment, and it is shaping our behavior. So, what is entertainment? Entertainment is anything from movies, songs, porn, stand-up comedy, magazines. And I found that over the decades, it had shaped my view and attitude towards gender and relationships, gender roles, and created a lack of gender safety in India. How so, you may ask? Once upon a time, there was a little girl, me, teenage girl, me. And I sat with my copy of 17 magazine and a pen, and I let an article titled 10 Signs Your Crush is Into You help me make sense of my romantic interests' random behavior. If they maintain eye contact with you, they're into you. If they help you, they're definitely into you. They go back home thinking, I did a nice thing, helped that girl out, and I go back home fallen in love. Psychologists believe that we all have psychological biases when it comes to reading other people's feelings about us. So if my crush helps me, I'm inclined to believe that they like me. I may be right, I may be wrong. I had to unlearn this and learn that the only way to know for sure is to ask. But entertainment doesn't tell us this growing up, does it? Because that would be quite boring. Imagine an article titled, How to Know Your Crush Likes You? Ask Them, would end as soon as it starts. And by the way, this detective work of reading into science isn't limited to magazine articles. Indian cinema leads this movement of perpetuating this concept. Let's take the golden example of DDLJ.
राज अगर ये तुझे प्यार करती है तो ये पलट के देखेगी पलट
And so what did Raj do? Went all the way from London to an obscure village in Punjab to stop a woman's wedding. Based on what? She turned around and she smiled. I think a lot of us are thinking, oh my God, I did that once. Yeah. And you're probably also thinking, what's the big deal? You know, I'm not causing any problems in the diaspora of gender. And how is this related to your work, sex ed? Well, it is, and I'll get to that. So while the impact of reading into science can be something small, like a funny, embarrassing story, but it also leads to some major, serious consequences like molestation, eve teasing, and stalking. And most importantly, victim blaming, which means to say that a perpetrator claims that they did something unlawful because the victim did something, because the victim gave a sign, a smile, clothes, laugh, or a combination, just as in the case of my student who stopped coming to our center. We ran a focus group study with young men to ask why heterosexual males stalk women, and what we found startled us. They said that it was the male's expression of romantic interest, and they cited Indian cinema as a learning source. And what does the bulk of Indian cinema teach? It definitely doesn't portray how to express your romantic interest or how to accept rejection in a healthy, respectful, and legal manner. On the other side, it teaches that when a girl says no, she means try harder, because the stalker lover ends up winning the heart of the leading lady. So while stalking in movies has a happy ending, the real-life, gut-wrenching stories of stalking lead to innocent people living their lives in fear, dropping out of school and work, acid attacks, and in some cases, the loss of lives, like that of the DU student who was stalked and killed by a senior. So if I've convinced you that entertainment is problematic. We obviously had to address it, right? If Indian cinema and if entertainment was promoting sexual harassment, we had to address it in our workshops. But how do we tell our students who love Indian cinema that it's a big bad villain? So, we conduct an activity where we teach them not just about all the laws around sexual harassment, but also how Indian cinema promotes it. So what we do is, on one side of the screen, you can see some of the crimes with the corresponding jail terms. And on the other side, you can see the lyrics of the song Gandi Baat, but in the movie R. Rajkumar. What's the task? We ask the students to calculate that if the character in the movie or anyone in real life is to follow the lyrics to express their love, how many years would they spend in jail? Can I request the audience to take their phones or a pen or anything and calculate the jail term? Read the lyrics, try to correspond it with the crimes, and figure out the jail term. So let's do this. The first line is stalking. The fourth line is demanding sexual favor despite indication of disinterest. Usne bola hat mawali. And the last two lines are threatening to cause harm, somewhere at about 8 years. This activity is not just amusing, but shocking for our students. Because why? The cool factor of stalking or following a girl suddenly becomes ridiculous to them. And that is really important. I also want to say that I don't mean to imply that the cause of sexual assault, the only cause of sexual assault is Indian cinema, but its scope and influence is undeniable. Come on, an entire generation is named Raj and Rahul, and after Dabang, people started wearing their sunglasses on the back of their collar. It's inconvenient. Or in good news, the movie Padman brought forth a very taboo topic of menstruation. That's the power of cinema. So, you're thinking, great, entertainment is problematic. I don't create it. What do I do? Why are you here? Stop making me feel guilty. But see, there is something you can do. First, you can critically analyze the entertainment through the gender lens. Ask yourself, is this piece of entertainment causing me to have a wrong, an outdated idea of gender and relationships? Is this representing the LGBTQIA communities in the right manner? Is the porn I'm watching giving me the correct idea about what respectful and consensual sex looks like? And while I can listen to problematic songs and not sexually harass anybody, are these songs causing the creation of a general culture that may cause somebody else to maybe sexually harass? And once this critical analysis becomes very natural for you, you may choose to engage in step 2, which, by the way, I just want to give you a heads up, don't blame me later, I may have lost some friends over. It's consumer activism, which means the rejection or boycott of seriously problematic entertainment. So you tell yourself, this movie promotes marital rape, or it makes a joke out of marital rape. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to contribute to the box office sales of this movie. A few years ago, I could belt out a sexist Punjabi rap song by memory. And now I can't even listen to the same without going into my jail term calculation mode. So to wrap up my time today, comprehensive sexuality education is wide. We cover a multitude of topics: safer sex, contraception, protection from STIs, gender roles at home, and we address a multitude of Indian problems through this: child sexual abuse, unwanted pregnancies, unsafe abortions, the discrimination of LGBTQIA communities. And the impact of 2.5 years of work has been nothing short of memorable and shocking. Boys, after going through our sex ed course, have displayed gentler and more empathetic attitude towards girls. Students, boys included, have started challenging menstrual myths at home. A little girl of 12 years came to us and said that after our menstruation workshop, she decided to do a little experiment. She decided that on her period, she will touch a jar of pickles. And she was happy to report that nothing happened to it. She was amused, shocked, and convinced. Or the fact that it creates a safe space for young people to ask questions that bring them shame and bring them fear. Again, after one of our workshops, a woman of 19 told us that she's worried because she's been menstruating every day for the past month or so. And we figured that it was not probably a case of menstruation, but one of an abortion gone wrong. And the bleeding was being caused most probably by a dead fetus inside her uterus, which could have been fatal for her health. The impact of sex ed is not just long term, but it's also short term because kids and youth are living with fear right now. So we're just one small organization working on the sidelines, trying to impact as many as we can. Sex ed needs to be implemented nationwide in all schools, private or government. India has 600 million children and youth, the largest in the world. And how many of us here today can say we received a comprehensive sexuality education? And so, will that be the solution? Sadly, no. To our gender problems, we need to add 2 more solutions. Stricter laws and stricter implementation of laws, and economic opportunities for young people. But all 3 things coming together, I guarantee you, are going to take some time. In the meantime, you and I possibly can't just sit with our arms crossed because every day the situation of gender impacts every single one of us. So we can continue to educate ourselves, learn and unlearn, fix our blind spots. It's going to be tough, but I guarantee you it's going to be worth it. Thank you.